Warning: this article contains spoilers for Game of Thrones Season 7. A preview for Game of Thrones Episode 3 shows Sir Greyjoy's triumphant return to King's Landing, complete with his gift in tow, but it could set in motion events that'll look disturbingly familiar to some in Westeros. Before the climactic battle at the end of Stormborn, which resulted in Euron and his men taking Alaria Sand, Tyene Sand, and probably Yara Greyjoy prisoner, Game of Thrones reminded the audience of a few important things they may have forgotten along the way. Have you forgotten what happened to our head father? Sansa asked Jon. The Mad King invited him to King's Landing and roasted him alive. The execution of Rickard Stark and his eldest son Brandon at the orders of King Aerys II Targaryen happened before either Jon or Sansa were born, but it was an important point in Westerosi history. Apart from Rhaegar Targaryen kidnapping or running away with Lyanna Stark, it's the single biggest event that led to Robert's rebellion and the end of the Targaryen reign. They didn't deserve to die like that. Rickard and Brandon Stark have been name-dropped a handful of times and alluded to throughout Game of Thrones, but A Song of Ice and Fire reveals more detail from someone who witnessed it. Brandon Stark, who previously bested Peter Baelish in a duel for Catelyn Tully after Brandon became betrothed to her, was on his way to River Run for his wedding when he heard about his sister Lyanna's disappearance. Arriving in King's Landing, Brandon furiously demanded that Rhaegar come out and die, but instead Aerys had him arrested and asked Rickard to come to King's Landing and answer for his son's crimes. According to Jaime Lannister in A Clash of Kings, Rickard demanded a trial by combat. Aerys unsportingly chose fire as his champion instead of an actual person, and suspended Rickard with fire burning beneath him. To make matters worse, as Rickard burned alive, Brandon, who had a noose around his neck, strangled himself attempting to reach a sword that could have saved his father. As they both died, Jaime and hundreds others witnessed it without doing a thing. In the defense, Aerys was pretty unhinged at that point, and likely would have killed any detractors. Jaime relayed part of this story to Ned in Season 1, calling both Brandon and Rickard brave and that they didn't deserve to die like that. Jaime also noted that when he eventually killed Aerys, his mind went back to the day he saw Brandon and Rickard die. Sir Barristan Selmy, who alluded to the event in Season 5, may have also been present. Read more. 500 men just stood there and watched. Jaime said, "All the great knights of the Seven Kingdoms. You think anyone said a word, lifted a finger? No, Lord Stark. 500 men, and this room was silent as a crypt. Except for the screams, of course, and the Mad King laughing. While those men didn't do anything to save the Starks at the time, the whole event did play a significant role in convincing the Lords of Westeros to overthrow Aerys. It never made it to television. The Game of Thrones filmed Rickard and Brandon's deaths. A brief clip of it is seen in a pre-Season 1 Game of Thrones trailer, which Game of Thrones producer and writer Brian Cogman confirmed was meant to be in the show's second episode. GIF via Game of Thrones YouTube. While Brandon has yet to appear at all in Game of Thrones, Rickard showed up briefly in Season 6's The Door as he said goodbye to